This is episode 355 of the Beyond the Food Show, and today I'm doing the damn thing. I'm launching a women coaching certification, and I'm taking you behind the scene on how I coach myself to do the damn thing. Ready? Stay tuned. Welcome to the Going to Beyond the Food Show, the only podcast that teaches you how to reshape your mind, not your body, to make your life better, bigger, and bolder. Your undieted life. I'm your host, Stephanie Dozier, reformed dieter, nutritionist, and coach. You ready? Let's do this. Hello, my sisters, and welcome back to the podcast. If you've listened to podcast 354, I kind of hinted at this podcast today. On 354, I talked to you about how I overcame lots of resistance in order to put a big project forward in my business, which I'm sure you guys have lots of things you're resisting also in your life. And today I'm revealing what is the damn thing that I was resisting so much and how I overcame that resistance and what it's going to look like. I'm going to give it to you right now. It's the non-diet coaching certification, a women coaching certification created to liberate women. So let's talk about this. I hope you're doing well. I am doing very well. Today I'm recording this episode on April the 17th, and you're going to hear it days later. And I chose to record this episode the day after the launch of the non-diet coaching certification. For one reason is I wanted to share the behind the scenes story in the energy, the emotion, the thoughts that I was feeling after launching this program into the world. I wanted to be able to take you through the full behind the scene of this launch for me and for our business and for our student as well, from a place of having lived it. And this is what we're going to do today together. I'm going to take you through the behind the scene of the creation and the launch of the non-diet certification. And just so you know, it's a 1.5 years of work. And not in the sense of work that you probably are thinking about, a whole different kind of work that had to happen in order for me to be able to share this program with you. So it's really going to be a behind the scene. If you want to know about the technical details of the non-diet coaching certification, we're going to talk about it a little bit about halfway through this podcast, but I would highly recommend that you go and visit the page, stephaniedode.com/non-diet coaching certification, in order to get like the nitty gritty detail about the certification. We have an extensive frequently asked question as well. I gathered all the questions from the consultation that I did over the year for this program, and I put it all out there. Today is going to be a lot about the mental, spiritual, and emotional work that needed to happen in me in order to be able to put this program out there. And be quite honest with you, I refuse to create a certification for years. And I was quite actually vocal about that on the podcast here, in my group program, in conversation with my colleague. I was quite adamant that I would never create a certification for my methodology. Crazy. And here we are today. And I've just launched a certification. And I want to help you understand why I did that and how I did that. For those who've been listening to the podcast for years, you probably remember like episode 2, 3, 4 of this podcast, which is like 3 years ago, where I was talking and teaching you about imposter syndrome and how to overcome imposter syndrome. And the reason why I talk about imposter syndrome on so many episodes is because it's the number one reason that you have given me as to why you're not pursuing transitioning your business to the non-diet approach or starting a business helping other women in the non-diet approach. By like far, like 75% of the people who stay on the sideline is because of imposter syndrome. And I have been leading in a position of leadership since my early 30s, since the age of 28 years old, in the retail industry and then in the health and coaching industry for the last 10 years. And it's not just in our industry that imposter syndrome is present. It was all over my prior career in the retail industry. I was trying to promote women in my businesses, and I couldn't because they felt that they weren't quote unquote good enough to be promoted in the corporate world or to start a business in the coaching world. And I thought on that for years. And I always came back to it's not the piece of paper on the wall behind you that's going to create the confidence in you to get a promotion or to start a business. And I got myself into this place of being mad at the system, diet culture, patriarchy, the corporate culture, and the toxic business culture that taught my peers, other women, that they needed that piece of paper, and then the piece of paper, the degree, the certification would deliver confidence. I didn't have a degree in business. I have a degree in nutrition, but I still don't have a degree in entrepreneurship and in business. And here I am teaching you about business and entrepreneurship. I know at the DNA level, you don't need that piece of paper. And I got myself into that space where I said, and I remember saying these words, I'll never do a certification because I'm just co-opting that system of oppression that tell women they're not good enough. And about a year ago, I was teaching a class inside of the mentorship program, which is, by the way, if you're new to the podcast, the non-diet mentorship program is where I have tested over the last 3 years how to teach the Going to Beyond the Food methodology to professional over 7 cohorts that is now becoming the non-diet coaching certification. So I was teaching a class about a year and a half ago, we'll say, on marketing, and we were talking about messaging and copywriting. And I was telling my student, be sure when you write your copy, when you write social media posts, you don't use industry jargon in your copy. You need to make sure that you are being carefully aware, deeply aware of who you're talking to. These people, your future client, haven't done the work yet. They're still stuck in diet culture. They're still under the oppression of the weight loss industry and diet culture. So if you're using the language from somebody who's already gone through intuitive eating and made peace with their body, when they're still stuck in diet culture, they won't connect with you. And as I was saying these words, a wave of heat just came pouring down on me, literally in my body sensation. And in that fraction of a second, I realized that's what I was doing when I was marketing my professional training program. I was upholding a message, a marketing message that you don't need a certification to be confident to people, some of you listening, who had not yet understood how we created confidence, you and perhaps your colleague are still stuck in thinking that the piece of paper on the wall is what's going to make you a great coach, a great practitioner. It's going to make you confident to launch your business. And I realized that I was doing a disservice. I was not helping diet culture dismantling. I wasn't helping getting more professional train in an anti-diet culture approach by stubbornly and rebelliously refusing to call my program a certification, to give a piece of paper, a certification, literally 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I was so rebellious and I was so stubborn. I was refusing to create that and create a logo for people to put on their website. And I needed to change that. And so in that moment, I will still remember that day I was teaching that class on copywriting and messaging, ending the class and had to have a one-to-one conversation from me to me. So I grabbed my journal and I did a bunch of writing and self-awareness, thought download, we call it, in the cognitive behavioral coaching model, and realized that I was stuck in rebellious thinking. And I digged and I digged and I digged, and I work with my coach on this. And the real reason why I was refusing to do a certification was because I was afraid. Yeah. I was hiding my fear with this rebellious line of thinking. And here we go again. I coach people on this over and over again. When we talk about rebellious eating, what we're really talking about when we help people discovering why they rebelliously eat is because they're afraid of claiming their authority over food, right? Or over their body. They're afraid of being in charge of their own life. And for me, in the case of being stuck in rebellious thinking, the fear that I was not allowing myself to see, because the first thing you need to do is being aware of your thought and being aware of why you're afraid, was two things. It was cancel culture in our own industry. In the social activism circle, we have a big history of cancel culture in between each other, right? One of the reasons why our work is slowly climbing up the level of public awareness is because we sometimes self-destruct between each other, right? And so I was afraid of being canceled because who am I to create a certification for non-diet coaching in my industry? And then two was really another layer of me being worthy. And if you've been listening to this podcast, but primarily my other podcast, Going Beyond the Food, over the last 5 years, I've done a lot of public sharing about one of the main beliefs that we share as women who have been oppressed by diet culture is that we're not enough. And I've done a lot of work on that. I'm now enough with food, I'm enough with my body image, I'm enough with my health and with my exercise, but with my business, I needed to peel the next layer of enoughness, which is you are enough to create a certification. You are enough to stand on your soapbox and say, the Going to Beyond the Food method is the method to help women leaving diet culture behind. Not only from a place of lived experience for you, Stephanie, as a person, but for the 1,000 clients you work with or for the hundreds of professionals you work with. It works for everyone. It's time now for you to stand in your soapbox to the world and be proud of what you've created and share that with authority in the world. And it was just another layer of my onion that needed to be peeled. And that's why I refuse to do a certification. So here's my message to you. Take this for a learning as you are looking back in your own life. Where are you stuck in rebellious thinking? Where are you stuck in being adamant that your way is the right way? And what is hiding behind that? So I worked over the last year and a half in peeling that layer of that onion and really digging down in my thoughts and my belief and building up my belief about myself professionally in this industry and the belief that I have in the methodology, the Going to Beyond the Food method, being so amazing and brilliant and powerful for professionals and for client, and being able to stand on my soapbox and share that with the world. So about 4 months ago, I came to a place where I fully believed that creating that certification was the right thing to do, and we started. Here's the beautiful thing about the certification is it's not from the ground up. As I mentioned earlier, I've been practicing teaching this over the last 3 years, over 3.5 years to be exact, 7 different cohort. I've passed through the non-diet mentorship program. So the curriculum for the certification was like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as the non-diet mentorship program. And it's been iterated, tested, iterated, tested, iterated, tested to find just the right approach of teaching, the right way of delivering this content. So it was super easy. So what really I had to work on in the last 4 months was really more the branding, the marketing, how is going to show, how is going to pull people into that certification from a visual, from a messaging standpoint. And that's what I worked on for the last 4 months. And that's what you see now into the world since yesterday. It's not, well, it's been 24 hours now into the world. And I wanted really a neutral visual approach through the non-diet certification. That's why you'll see a lot of black and white and really simple minimalists, because the curriculum of the certification stand on its own. It doesn't need to be sold with a lot of fancy graphic and fancy coloring. What makes this program, it's the people in it, people coming together, wanting to do their own personal work and learning how to help other women. This is a very narrow niche program for people identified as women who help other people self-identified as women, leaving diet culture behind in the most ethical, safe, and conscientious way. So for those of you who have been looking at the mentorship program, it's the same thing. The only difference is at the end, you will have the option of sitting for exam to be certified. So you will have to, there'll be a classic type exam to be done online, and there will be evaluation of your coaching that will have to be done by us, and then you will receive a piece of paper. The thing that I was so rebelling against, you will get it. You will get this piece of paper certifying that you've studied the Going to Beyond the Food method and you are now a non-diet coach. The beauty of the certification is that we will test you on 4 different areas of coaching. You will become a cognitive behavioral coach. We're going to spend 2 months, which is more than a third of the time we're studying together, really deep diving in coaching. We're not going to even talk about food, just like we're doing right now with our cohort. We're not talking about food. We're not talking about body image. We're talking about the mind, we're talking about the thoughts, the belief, nervous system regulation, emotional intelligence, because that's where coaching happens. And as I was building this curriculum, and the thing that was always the number one issue with my student is not knowing how to coach. Yet they had a piece of paper on their wall. They were a health coach. They were a body image coach from another certification somewhere, but they had no idea how to coach people. And for those who thought they knew how to coach, they quickly realized that they were coaching the wrong thing. They were coaching the behavior directly, but not the thought, the emotion behind the behavior. That's why we're teaching the cognitive behavioral model of coaching, emotional intelligence, trauma-informed program. We have one of our past graduate, Vanessa Preston, who graduated from our program 2 years ago. She is now a part of our teaching group. She has 2 classes within our curriculum that is all about trauma and nervous system regulation. Funny story about Vanessa. Vanessa came to me 2.5 years ago to study in the non-diet mentorship program, and she'd been looking at my program for over a year, but she felt she wasn't quote unquote good enough as a therapist. Vanessa is a complex trauma specialized therapist. She's been doing therapy with folks that have complex trauma background for over 15 years. And she was looking at the mentorship program and she felt not good enough. And she went in to do her nutrition degree in a university in order to feel good enough to come and study with us. And then for the first 3 months, I think, of our mentorship, she was finishing her degree in nutrition while studying with me. And then she realized that everything, all that she had been taught about nutrition, was actually useless, because it was all about calories and macros and dieting and all of that studying, all that investment of time and resources. You remember, this girl had a full-time job and she was at the university at night. She invested all these resources and didn't use a thing. She sent me an email 3 months ago and she said, still to this day, I'm not using a thing that I learned in 2 years in university, because it's pure diet culture. So anyway, Vanessa now teaches our segments of nervous system regulation and trauma inform within the context of coaching. So we learn all the depth of coaching and you're practicing on yourself. And we learn a self-coaching approach, and then we coach you on how you coach yourself, because that's the only way for you to become a great coach, is by mastering your own thoughts and your own emotion. And a lot of students do that on their own relationship to their body and to food, kind of finalize their own journey by being coached by someone else, us, the leader of the program. And then once we've mastered coaching, or at least the approach to coaching, we go in and we apply it to food, and then we apply it to health and to body image. And that's what makes up the non-diet coaching certification. And at the end, you get to sit for an exam on each one of those elements, so you can receive your certification and you can receive your titles as well. So if you do the full certification, you will receive titles of non-diet eating coach, non-diet body image coach, and non-diet life coach. Because one thing you will learn very quickly in the going beyond the food methodology, and it was never about food or about the body, it was about life. And that's something that I was afraid, to be honest with you, I was afraid to call my program a life coaching program. And I have an episode that's going to be coming up in a couple weeks that's called Beyond the Food Coaching versus Life Coaching. Because there's a lot of stigma around life coaching. But over the years, and the people that have gone through the mentorship program, I've seen people leave the nutrition world and call themselves life coach over and over and over again, because when you start coaching at that level, the level of the thoughts and the belief and the level of going beyond the food, you quickly realize what I have realized 7 years ago, that the problem is not the food. The problem is how the person was raised and their relationship and their thoughts about themselves. And that's my story. I thought I was the only one who was struggling with food because of self acceptance and family trauma and all of that. And then I realized, no, it's all my clients. And then I started teaching professional, and everybody was telling me the same thing. I end up coaching on relationship, and I end up coaching on career, and I end up coaching on emotions. And that many of you who are not yet gone through my training will tell me I get stuck in my coaching. I don't know what to tell my client. They bring up all these big emotions to the session, and they start crying, and they start talking about their partner and their kids. And I don't know how to coach them on that. But we need to know how to coach on that, because that's what's standing behind the disturbed relationship to food and the compulsive obsessive eating behavior and the self-hatred and the body dissatisfaction. The problem is not our body or the layer of fat on our body, it's how we think about our body. Because of how we were taught to think about our body, because of all the subtle message we were told everywhere. And it's the same thing with food. So really, you become a life coach. Because you are learning our cognitive behavioral coaching methodology, you are able to coach on anything. The way we teach it to you, you can approach any problem. It's a structure, it's a framework. No matter what the circumstance that your client presents, you just apply the methodology to it and you're able to coach on anything. And that's been so transformative for all the professionals that have gone through our program, is being able to coach on anything. And recently, over the last year, I've been taking in more and more life coach, right? People who have graduated as a life coach from another program, and then they're struggling with helping their client, their self-identified women client, with confidence without using weight loss as a tool to create confidence. And they're coming to us to learn how to do that. And the result they're getting with their client, because they now can use a life coaching tool in a safe, ethical way to help people build self-esteem and better relationship and confidence without having to resort to shrinking their body. So all around, this is my dream for the non-diet coaching certification. It disrupts the coaching industry. It disrupts the health coaching industry, which is so entrenched in diet culture and wellness culture right now. I want to disrupt the life coaching industry because it's entrenched in weight loss. I can't find a life coaching certification out there that is not entrenched in fat phobia and diet culture and weight loss. I want to disrupt that industry as well. And I want to give the tool to all of you out there who are doing work on intuitive eating and body image. I want to give you the tools that you need to make this work so much easier for your client, and for you as a coach, so much easier when you know how to coach. So I want this program, that's my dream, that it disrupt the coaching industry, because the coaching industry was created by men for men. If you go through the etymology and the history of that coaching industry, it was in the context of the business world. It was the Tony Robbins of this world that created a model of coaching that is made by men for men. It was never made for women. It was never comprehensive of how a woman is socialized and how a woman is conditioned. And even for the small segment of the coaching industry that is created by women, it's unfortunately women that have the same conditioning as you and I, from diet culture, from patriarchy, and they have not yet done their work on internalized fat phobia. So when they're teaching coaching, when they're coaching other women, they're coaching from an unawareness of where they're carrying their own fear of fatness. So I want this program, the non-diet coaching certification, to solve that, to give a place for women who understand that and want to do this work, not only learn the intellectual notion, but actually want and recognize that you need to embody this work for yourself first to be able to safely coach other women, and how to build a business that is respectful of these values, that is ethical in its structure. Because that's the other problem that I found when I was trying to, when a question that I know some of you will have, who are you, who is this program certified with? Which organization is it associated with? It is not associated with any places. I can't, because how they're coaching, life coaching, or how they're teaching life coaching, or how their program is associated with weight loss, or how their association is upholding non-ethical business practices. So we belong nowhere yet. That's going to be my next project over the next 2 to 3 years, is either find an ethical coaching association that we can affiliate with, or create my own. Because right now, we're in an island on our own. So it is a certification that at this point fits nowhere. But for me, it's not a big deal, because that's what the non-diet approach, that's what intuitive eating is, that's what body neutrality is, counterculture. So I know we're just pioneer, we are disrupting, we're leading a revolution, we're years lights ahead of the industry, and I know our island's going to become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I know that at some point the shift will happen, and there will be many other coaching organizations that will fit our paradigm, that will fit our value system, that we will be able to associate with and grow with and really impact at the next level. So I'm really excited for you to discover this program, to join us. The next cohort, it'll begin in July the 3rd, the same structure as a non-diet mentorship program was. It's from July to December. It's a 6-month live coaching container, small group coaching. We don't take in a lot of students because we're doing the work, not just lecturing you. We're actually coaching you on doing your personal work. So it has to remain small group coaching. And we're starting July the 3rd and ending December the 14th. And it's every 6 months we have a new cohort. So go and visit the sales page, stephaniedodier.com/non-diet coaching certification. And I'm looking forward to sharing this container, this transformational container, with many of you that are listening here in July. If you have any questions, there's things that are not clear either on this podcast or on the page of the program, please send us an email at info@stephaniedodier.com, and then we will take notes of where our gaps in communications are or where we need to give more information. You will really be helpful for us to hear from you, so we can really streamline our messaging and our communication. So feel free to send us an email, info@stephaniedodier.com, and I'll see you on the next podcast. If you are loving what you're learning on the podcast, you have to come and check out Undiet Your Life. This is where we get to hang out together, where you get the individual help applying the concept thought on the podcast while learning new coaching tools that will make your life even more amazing. It's also where you get to apply the learning to think better, eat better, and feel better, and create your undieted life, your better, bigger, and bolder life. Go to stephaniedodier.com/join. I'd love to have you join us inside of Undiet Your Life, and I'll see you on the other side.